so this essay planner was developed with the idea that it would help you to break down the requirements for the essay itself and also to help you plan for the essay. So here's a mock essay question, which I've pasted here. Critically evaluate the claim that working and studying concurrently is the best way to gain a qualification. Okay. So it asks you for the topic and main concepts, just to focus your mind on what is being asked of you, and really it's all about working and studying at the same time. Okay, and then the task words, it's just there to focus your attention on what is the job. The job is to critically evaluate. So you're critically evaluating whether working and studying at the same time is actually the best way to gain a qualification. Okay. You can write it there if you want to, or you don't have to. And then here, it's just to double check your understanding. So put it all together in your own words for yourself. No one's going to see this except for you. But if you put it in your own words, it will help you. So in this essay, I need to decide whether it is a good idea to study and work at the same time, or whether there are better ways to do it. Okay, you can see that I was not the one to fill this out the last time. Right. So this is really just a simple way to explain to yourself that you understand what your job is, okay? You can save it. You can continue to the next step. Right. So this is the time where if you were doing an essay which requires you to do research, you would stop and do some research so that you can figure out what your stance is. In other words, what's your opinion on this topic? You can't have an opinion on it. Well, you can, but you also have to find out what others say about this topic. So the first thing is, have you read the prescribed readings? Okay, if you're doing an essay for an exam, you probably won't have any, but if you're doing one for a general varsity task, you probably will have, okay? And then there's a place here where you can, as you read, you can type out the best quotes that you can find so that you can save them here, and then you can come back and you can use these quotes in your essay. And here's just a reminder to use your university's referencing guide to figure out what kind of referencing you're supposed to engage with. Okay, this is important. Now, every essay needs to have a main argument. Well, especially if it's a particularly argumentative essay, should I say. So where they ask you to evaluate, generally, you need to have a viewpoint. So it's either that you agree, that you disagree with the statement, or that perhaps there are, pros and cons to both. But either way, you need to have a clear stance, which they call a thesis statement or a main argument. Okay, so now that you've done your research, if you are doing any, it's time to form your main argument. This should be one clear, direct sentence that answers the essay question and is supported by your research. Okay, so it's your main argument. What is it that you're trying to prove? Okay, so it might be something like, this essay will prove that working and studying concurrently, is the best way to earn a qualification. Or you might say that this essay will show that it is preferable to study and work after you've completed your qualification. So it really depends on your point of view and your argument. All right, so I'm not going to finish all of this. Let's carry on. So this is to focus you on, what are you trying to prove? What is your point? Okay, once you've got this, you now continue to planning your paragraph. And it says here, remember your thesis, which is the statement here. What you want to prove is the backbone of your essay, and everything else you write should support it. Okay. So, in your introduction, you need background information on the topic. You need your argument, and you've already developed that in the previous section of this app. And you need a roadmap of what's coming in your essay. So in other words, you need to explain to the reader what your moves are going to be. In other words, first I'm going to tell you this, then I'm going to tell you this, and then I'm going to tell you this. Okay? So you are effectively letting them know what you're going to say right in your introduction. Okay? So let's see how I've done this. Okay, my background information: balancing work and study has become increasingly common as more people seek qualifications while maintaining financial stability. Working while studying can offer valuable experience, improve time management, and help learners apply theory to practice. However, it can also cause fatigue, reduce academic focus, and increase stress. This essay argues that so that was my background information, okay? Then I'm going to say exactly what my thesis statement is, okay? Because have a look over here. It's got background information, then the thesis statement. So this essay argues that while combining work and study can be highly beneficial, especially when the job complements one's field, it is not always the best option. Okay, so that's my take. Okay, and then I'm going to explain the last little bullet point here, a roadmap of what's coming. So it says the advantages and disadvantages of this approach will be explored, highlighting how personal circumstances and support systems determine whether it leads to success. So what have I done? There's no mystery here. I've just explained to my reader exactly what I think and what I'm going to do. That's what a strong introduction has. Okay, so a body paragraph needs to be focusing on one main focus or argument. Okay, so you can't talk about 4 or 5 different focus points in one body paragraph. You have to pick an argument or pick a point of view or pick something to talk about and focus on that one thing and provide evidence for that one thing. Okay, so in my introduction, I've already said that we're going to talk about the advantages and the disadvantages and how personal circumstances and support systems determine whether it leads to success. Okay, so I may wish to start here with the advantages of working and studying at the same time. And then I need to stick to that idea. Okay, it's really important that I don't veer off into why it's terrible. I stick to one idea per paragraph. Okay, so it gives you on the side here, it says what you need to have a topic sentence, which basically is a sentence which says exactly what you're going to tell them in this paragraph. Okay, examples of your argument and linking words like, for example, however, therefore, moreover, all of that posh kind of academic language to link your ideas. So let's see what my topic sentence is. Okay, now a topic sentence tells you what you're going to be talking about in this paragraph. So here's my topic sentence. Working while studying offers several advantages, particularly in developing practical skills and a strong work ethic. Okay, so that is what I'm focusing on in this paragraph. I cannot now move on to other topics. I can use other topics in other body paragraphs. This body paragraph is focusing on this because I've put this as my topic sentence. Okay, so I'm not going to read you all of this, but basically this is all about the advantages. Okay, then body paragraph 2, same thing. I'm not going to fill them all out. You need to make sure you've got a topic sentence. What does that mean? A topic sentence is your main point or focus for that particular paragraph. Okay, now you could have 3, 4, 5, 6 paragraphs, I don't know, but the point is I've given you a couple. Okay, now if you have an essay where you have a very specific point of view, but it's arguable, in other words, if someone is asking you whether veganism is good for you or not, and you say it's good for you, that can be argued, right? There's evidence to support both sides that veganism is good for you, and also perhaps veganism, you may lack certain vitamins. So a counter argument is a paragraph where you just show that you've considered other people's opinions. In other words, you might say, I believe that veganism is good for you. However, research does suggest that XYZ, and then you go back to your argument and you explain why your argument is still the best. Okay, so that's what a counter argument is. So if they ask you in your essay to provide a counter argument, it means you need to look at other people's perspectives and try and give a more rounded point of view. Okay, and then your conclusion. Now, your conclusion does not offer the reader any new information. Your conclusion is summing everything up. It's saying, in summary, this is what I have fought for. This essay has shown that the advantages are this, the disadvantages are this, X, Y, X, Y, Z. Okay. So you're not going to all of a sudden create a new insight or something that you haven't already shared. You're basically summarizing your essay in a couple of sentences. Okay. And make sure that you are linking back to your original thesis statement and your essay question. Have you answered the essay question properly? That's what happens. The conclusion is basically tying it up in a nice bow. Okay? Now, this part I put in here for times when you need to cite references. So if you have a textbook or an article you need to read and you haven't yet read it. So if you didn't read it in the step before you made your thesis statement, now is the time. Okay. So, generally in exams, they don't ask you to cite things. Okay. They might say refer to extract A, and that is actually referencing. But in an essay that you might write at other times of your studies, you'll probably need to draw on research. So you need to think, what is the main point of your first body paragraph? Now, remember, our main point was that there were some advantages to working and studying concurrently. That was our body paragraph 1. So you may wish to go and find some research that supports that particular point in body paragraph 1. And then you find it, okay? And you put it here for yourself and you explain to yourself how it proves your point. So anytime that you reference an article, you need to find the pieces inside that article that are like your expert witnesses. If you were fighting your point in a court of law and you don't want to go to jail, you would call people to be your expert witnesses. When you read an article to support your claim, you are finding other people who think just like you do, and you're putting in their ideas to support yours. Okay, so that's what this section is for. You don't have to use it, but you can if you want. Okay, next one is the final checklist. Very important. Okay, now you've drafted your essay. Okay, it's in draft. Now you're going to check that you've done this. Have you in your introduction, have you done the following? Provided background information, contains a clear thesis statement. Remember what that is? It's your point of view. Gives the reader a roadmap of what's coming. And here's for the body paragraphs, your evidence, your conclusion. Okay, and here's your technical requirements. So I suggest that when you are writing your exam, that you go through this and you just check that you've done. Basically, writing an academic essay is like following a good recipe. So I hope that helps. Then if you want to save your plan, you copy it to clipboard and you will find that when you paste it, it will show you what you've done so far so that you can keep it on hand somewhere. But good luck for writing your essays, and I do hope that this is useful.